why Patricia is back with we have some questions for her, and she'll also take them from the floor. And she's also going to talk about the 5 skills for leadership, both ways. Okay. So, the skills thing. You want me to start reading questions? How do you want to do it?
Let's do the questions first.
Okay.
Each question.
Okay. All right. And then you can, okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to read the question, and then Patricia will respond. Will AAUW consider more issues, such as student debt, that affect women and men? While debt may affect the sexes differently, the idea of looking at issues that are not fully single-sex specific may help broaden membership.
Well, yes, we were founded as an organization for women's equity, but we know that whatever impacts women impacts their families, husbands, partners, men, and so on. You know, whenever there is injustice against any part of society, any segment of the population, it affects everyone. So my answer to that is, we know there is going to be a lot of follow-up regarding student debt, especially with the onset or with the release of this study. You know that staff is going to be producing many ways to work within your communities or issues to address with legislators, recommendations, and so on. And so while this may be addressed as debt among women students, you know, I don't see how one could really divorce the two. So to me, student debt means debt for any students who are attending community college or higher education or whatever. And so, you know, with that in mind, whatever impacts women impacts men, impacts the whole of society, and you can extrapolate it that way.
Has AAUW taken a stand on protecting the arts, music, art, drama in schools?
I can't think offhand of any particular piece of legislation that has come up regarding, for example, protection of funds and aid for the arts organizations and so on. I believe in our public policy, in our national public policy position, there is a statement about the protection or the sustenance of our arts. You know, it may be in the preamble. Who has that? Public policy, yeah.
I do have it, but when we were in DC at the convention, I asked Lisa, what about this? What about that? What are we doing about this? And she said, we have to choose what we stand for carefully. And she said, everybody's pulling at us all the time. And she instructs Seth and his staff, they have to look at our mission. And then some things we just can't do, so we can't be all things to everyone. And I think this might be one of those where we certainly all support it, but we can't dilute the mission and the statement.
Yeah, and Sharon is absolutely right. We haven't diverted extra efforts or staff work toward, for example, preservation for the Council of the Arts or public television, PBS, and so on. I do remember in Mission and Action and in some of the action alerts there and Washington Update, there have been segments devoted to proposed cuts to at least alert people and AAUW members to take action as they wish. But you know, our purview is already so broad in terms of what impacts women's equity, women's access to health, education, training, employment opportunities, and so on, that it gets really hard, and we have a staff that's already stretched. So, you know, that's part of our branding, it's part of our identity as an organization. You can't do everything. but we certainly understand the need for the independent voices, the expression of ideas and opinions through the arts and through the media. Was that too broad?
How were the 15?
I have it, I just found it. In your goodie bags is a brochure with the national 2011-2013 public policy. In the middle of the inside, under AU supports affirmative action, blah, 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 the last statement, AUW values and is committed to the arts and humanities which develop and enhance our pluralistic cultural heritage.
And also in our Indiana public policy
Right.
agenda, page 19, in your program booklet today, you can read actually kind of a rephrasing of that same thing. It says we support public and private funding for the arts.
Okay, thank you.
So, you know, I really can see us doing programs and having discussions about this as a result in our local branches.
How were the 15 high-impact states chosen?
And Massachusetts, I told you, right? My state is one of the impact grant states. And one of the criteria was a really crucial seat in the balance. And in Massachusetts, it would be Scott Brown's seat because he took what people call Ted Kennedy's seat to really great chagrin and consternation and, you know, whatever else. So the opponent most likely will be Elizabeth Warren. So Elizabeth Warren v. Scott Brown, and that's a really high-profile seat because he is trying. He's dancing around trying to appear very moderate, but also trying to keep his Republican identity, which is very difficult in Massachusetts, and casting Elizabeth Warren in totally different light. So that's one, and I think in each one of the other states, there's a crucial seat in the balance. Plus, another criteria was how would the leadership within the state support a project? Were there committed members, committed leaders? Was there enough of an infrastructure within AAUW there that would assist and work with an AAUW staff coordinator who is hired part-time? And those were the major criteria and the chance of success, potential for achievement.
What are your suggestions for attracting young women to join AAUW?
Well, I should ask Santina and our Nicholasville person to speak about that. But I had mentioned before, and Celinda Lake's group had done a research survey on potential members and donors. And what really attracts our younger potential members is the mission. They tend to join online or through e-student and student groups. And it's the mission that attracts them and kind of keeps them there. And they tend to be very diverse in terms of interest and even of color. They're a very different group from our branch membership. So I think what would keep them going is the sense of passion within AAUW, the knowledge that there's so many things that you and I and some of our older members have worked so hard for in terms of access for women and how some of those formerly rights and protective laws are being eroded. How these young women have to be able to be in the forefront and in the fight, working on behalf of other women. and support systems for them, be it other AAUW members being, or be it networking opportunities through AAUW National or through the state structure. Short-term, really meaningful projects as opposed to one-time meetings, you know, at a time when most of them can't make it. It would really almost have to be an action-oriented endeavor, maybe short-term. Santina, can you think of anything else?
You pretty much covered many of the things that I was thinking, so I think those are excellent suggestions.
Yeah. I think it's the need for involvement. That's why this whole millennial project, because these are young women who have so much leadership potential. I mean, look at what we have here. And it needs to be channeled and directed toward working on behalf of other women, along with working on behalf of the rest of the world. But women need that kind of assistance. We're not there yet. They're going to face, Santina and all the others are going to face a world where they're only going to be making 77 or 78 cents, and it's still that way. So there's so many things that they need to be working, not only depending on us getting tired, you know, and getting working so hard and not seeing too much progress, or at least backsliding, but you know, working to maintain and build a better future for themselves. And I think that's the message that they ought to get. And you know what, it's not a short-term solution, because you're working long-term.
On the subject of membership, how many men are members of AAUW, and has there been an increase because of current practices in some states?
You know what? Can you look on our membership form and see if it says men or male or female? Does it? I don't know.
I don't believe so.
So you know
I just
what?
was there.
If someone, and I think staff, it does?
Yeah.
Okay. Staff says sometimes it's very difficult to tell because some people don't fill that out. I mean, you would be amazed at what's not written on the membership forms. You know, it's what people choose to fill in. And indeed, we don't keep records that way of, you know, a database for males and a database for females. Well, why should we? Because we're all together working as AAUW. As to whether there have been significant growths in membership, remember when associated degrees, people with associate degrees were allowed in, and one of the prime reasons voiced at convention was, well, you know, we're going to have all these people from community colleges and so on. Well, you know what? No. I mean, there was no great influence, and that's really too bad, because students in community college or graduates of community college have so much to offer. So no, there was no great increase when men were admitted and when graduates with AA degrees were admitted. No. And maybe that's kind of sad, because maybe that speaks to our outreach, or maybe that speaks to the perception that we give, that we're, you know, older women. Yeah, you know what the average age is, right? No. 72 years. I'll tell you, this is from the Every Member Survey, and it should have been, you know, results should have been shared with you, but ethnicity, people of color, you want to guess? Less than 3%. Okay, but remember I said also that demographics are changing because our national membership is growing. So, you know, we value every single member because we need every one of you. So.
What is a good response to many inquiries local branches get for scholarships. Many branches don't give scholarships.
Well, first of all, scholarships are different. You know, we need to differentiate between the fellowships and grants that AAUW offers as one of its AAUW funds, our old EF, the fellowships and grants. And then we do have a scholarship database which enables and encourages branches or states that offer their own scholarships to advertise their scholarships on this national AAUW database, along with all the requirements. You know, what are the qualifications, what do you request from your applicants. AAUW through Scholastic helps to administer that, but your criteria are your own, your selection process is your own. All AAUW does is to help manage the data for you. But other scholarships are offered through states and branches depending on which they are. It's because they want to, and AAUW recognizes the value of these. But you certainly don't have to be starting up a scholarship on your own.
So what's some good verbiage? You're good at the elevator speech thing, because we get inundated because girls who are spending all weekend applying to everyone.
Yeah, so why doesn't AAUW offer a
Yeah, because
scholarship?
in some book we're listed as a group that supports. What's a good answer? We do it through our national office, or because if you look on that database, there aren't any branches listed. And
There aren't, huh?
I don't think
Because,
so.
well, there's a fee also, and some of them don't want to pay that fee to Scholastic, you know, for
to get on.
administering.
But
Yeah.
if I'm in the Indianapolis branch and we get a number of them, or from the state level we get a number, I'm just looking for a good response that doesn't, I mean, I don't want to say call the Gary Maryville because they've got a $200 scholarship. That's not going to help
Yeah.
somebody from Evansville. Just looking for
Well,
some
you know,
good
you can
verbiage.
say we support access to education in other ways through our advocacy work, our lobbying, through our support of collaborations, and you know, I'm not sure of everything that you do, but you think of all the ways that you support education initiatives. And it doesn't have to be directly through scholarships. And besides, you know, how many branches can offer a $1,000 scholarship? You know, it takes my branch, it took my branch like 2 or 3 years to build up interest to offer $500. And yeah, $500 is a big chunk, but in the long run, that's not enough. You know, whereas with the 500, we could have sustained other programs, community outreach, and so on. So it's a matter, I don't want to say it's a matter of priorities, but it's a way of deciding where your monetary resources go. And you don't have to apologize for that.
At least one branch that I know of contributes money locally to a group within their community that gives a scholarship. It collects money from various organizations for one scholarship. So sometimes that's available, sometimes not. And I have one last question. What is the status of the Women's Museum in Washington?
Women's History Museum.
This is the museum that some male congressman thought was absolutely unnecessary. After all, there's the Cowgirl Museum in Texas. There's the Quilting Museum in someplace else, the Teapot Museum someplace else. So why do women want their own museum, even though this consortium of which AAUW is a founding member has offered to support and will purchase at their own cost, you know, with loans and all, on land that nobody else has their eyes on. I mean, it's almost like a no-brainer, except that I don't believe it has received congressional approval. So that's where we're at. But AAUW is still fighting very hard for that. I talked about the museum in Washington. Have you been to the Women in the Arts Museum, Museum of Women in the Arts, also in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah.
Well, did you know that AAUW was one of the founding sponsors? Did you know that? And when we were at board meeting, we met the director, the executive director, and the founding member, Wilhelmina, and I forget her last name, the one who donated most of her collection to that. And we had a donor dinner of donors in the area to thank them, and it was at that museum. And their staff thanked AAUW for our role. Hey, there's promotion of the arts, right? Women in the arts, and AAUW had a hand in that. So you should be really proud of that. Did I answer the question, or did I forget the question?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Patricia. We've got just a couple more minutes. I don't know if you wanted to address your, well, these are those skills that you were asking about earlier.
Okay. Could you have, why don't you sit here, and in case anybody mentions something else. So can I just read these? These were the 5 leadership skills that you thought were necessary for AAUW or community leaders to have, and this would be for our staff and our leadership development committee to develop and implement in some way, okay, some method of delivery. So the 5 skills needed, and just listen, and if you want to add something, Barb will take it down. Passion, enthusiasm, be knowledgeable and ever learning, see the big picture. Find all women's organizations in your area, then find out how you can partner with them on projects. Yeah, so collaboration is major, and that's what you're doing. Networking abilities, how to use resources, how to create resources. Communication skills, networking abilities. Communication, lots of it with members and outside the organization, working with other organizations, transparency with initiatives, fairness, and flexibility to change. Flexibility, being able to ask for help, it's okay to ask. Are there any other skills that you need? Some of these may be mindsets or attitudes, but any skills that maybe you could learn or improve upon? Yeah, so anything.
I had one that I never got to a card, and that it's partially been covered, and that's know your mission and know your audience.
Would it be like marketing? Know your mission and know your audience, yeah. So in other words, direct your message to your audience and know who your target audience is.
And know what, and really know what you want to share.
Yeah, what you want to accomplish and what you want to say. Anything else in terms of skills, leadership skills that you want? Oh, sorry.
We put on our card domestic violence.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know what to do with it, but it's becoming a big thing against women. Look at your papers and you'll see what I mean. And I don't know what AAUW could do, but it's just a possibility.
Okay, well,
Domestic violence.
yeah, first of all, AAUW, excuse me, lobbied very hard for passage of the Violence Against Women's Act, and that passed the Senate. So AAUW staff was very, very strong on that, yes.
I think it's right there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Very good, Marcia.
Thank you. See, I mean, she may not look like she's listening, but Marcia's right in there. Sorry. I love her. You know, she's going to come with me on every other tour.
Guam, here I come.
Okay. But you also have a domestic violence expert over here with Sharon. So, I mean, that's really a big issue. Violence against women, period. Because one of the LAF cases is Choka v. Rumsfeld, and that's violence, sexual assault against women in the military. You know, in human sex trafficking, that's major. AAUW came out very strong against that. So we're in the field working on that as an issue.
That
Okay.
would be just kind of like the arts thing. It's something we peripherally support, but it's not our core mission. Like, we can't have an AAUW branch that just focuses on domestic violence and sets up domestic violence shelters, because then you're not AAUW anymore. So there are a lot of things we are peripherally supportive of. I still haven't found that thing about the arts, but it's kind of, if STEM and women in STEM things is a major core mission, then we wouldn't want to supplant that with an art education program. It could be a peripheral thing, just like domestic violence. We peripherally support that, but.
Yeah, and timely. You know, things have to be timely and relevant to your state and of the time. Okay, so thank you very much. And if you want to contact me, I do have my card. I am locatable, that's another made-up word, online, you know, under in membership center, under leaders, AAUW leadership directory, or Barb or Sharon. Okay, so thank you very much. It was a pleasure to get to know you.